Summer heat has a way of turning even the coolest homes into ovens, and when the electricity bill starts climbing right alongside the temperature, most homeowners start looking for a cheaper way to stay comfortable. That is exactly why this trick has been quietly passed around for generations, long before central air conditioning became common in every household. All you need is a regular fan, a bowl, some ice, and something almost every kitchen already has: table salt. Turning any fan into a nice cold air cooler using just salt sounds almost too simple to work, but the science behind it is real. And once you understand why it works, you will wonder why you did not try it sooner. Let's start with the basic idea, because understanding the why makes the how so much easier to get right. A regular fan does not actually cool the air in a room. It just moves air around, which feels refreshing because moving air helps sweat evaporate off your skin faster, and evaporation pulls heat away from your body. That is why a fan feels good even on a hot day, even though the thermometer on the wall has not moved an inch. Now, if you can get that fan to blow air across something genuinely cold, like ice, you are no longer just moving warm air, you're actually pushing cooler air toward yourself. This is the entire principle behind swamp coolers and homemade air conditioning units, and it is also the secret behind the salt and fan trick that so many homeowners swear by during heat waves. So where does the salt come in? This is the part that surprises most people. Salt lowers the freezing point of water, which is why we use it to melt ice on driveways and sidewalks in the winter. When you add salt to ice, it disrupts the ice's ability to stay frozen at the normal 32-degree mark, forcing it to absorb more energy from its surroundings in order to melt. In simple terms, salted ice gets colder than plain ice before it fully melts, and it pulls heat out of the air around it more aggressively while doing so. The colder surface temperature is exactly what you want when you are trying to chill the air blowing across your bowl. Essentially, you are recreating the same chemistry used in old-fashioned ice cream makers, except instead of churning dessert, you are churning cool air straight into your living room. Now, let's talk about how to actually set this up in your own home, because the process is refreshingly simple and does not require any special tools. Start with a wide, shallow bowl or basin, something with a large surface area rather than a tall, narrow container. The more surface area exposed to the air, the more efficient the cooling effect will be, since a wider spread lets more cold air rise off the ice at once. Fill that bowl with ice cubes or crushed ice, whichever you have on hand, though crushed ice tends to work slightly faster because it has more exposed surface area than solid cubes. Once the bowl is filled, sprinkle a generous layer of ordinary table salt or rock salt directly over the ice, and give it a light stir so the salt makes contact with as much of the ice as possible. You do not need anything fancy here. Plain table salt from your pantry works perfectly fine, though some homeowners prefer using coarser rock salt or sea salt because it dissolves a little more slowly and can extend the cooling effect. Once your salted ice bowl is ready, place it directly in front of your fan, close enough that the airflow passes right over the surface of the ice rather than just brushing past the edge of the bowl. Angle the fan slightly downward if possible, so the air skims across the ice before spreading out into the room. Within just a few minutes, you should start to feel a noticeably cooler breeze compared to the plain warm air the fan was pushing out before. It will not feel like a full central air conditioning unit, and it is important to set realistic expectations here. But for a small to medium-sized room, especially a bedroom, home office, or reading nook, the difference can be significant enough to make an uncomfortable evening much more bearable. For homeowners who want to boost the effect even further, there are a few small upgrades worth trying. Instead of a single bowl, some people use two bowls positioned on either side of the fan, so the cool air gets pulled from multiple directions at once. Others freeze water bottles ahead of time and lay them across a tray with a layer of salted ice on top, which extends the cooling period since the frozen bottles melt more slowly than loose ice cubes. If you want a slightly more advanced version of this setup, try placing a damp towel over the back grill of the fan facing away from you, so incoming warm air passes through the damp fabric before circulating past the salted ice, adding an extra layer of evaporative cooling to the whole system. None of these upgrades are complicated, but they show just how flexible this simple trick can be when you start experimenting with airflow direction and ice placement. Of course, no home cooling hack is complete without a few practical warnings, and this one comes with some important details homeowners should keep in mind. Salted ice melts faster than plain ice, which means you will need to refill your bowl more often than you might expect, sometimes every 30 to 45 minutes depending on room temperature and humidity. Because of that faster melt rate, place a towel or waterproof mat underneath the bowl to catch any condensation or overflow, since salt water dripping onto wood floors, carpet, or electronics can cause damage over time. It is also worth noting that salt water is more corrosive than plain water, so avoid letting it splash directly onto your fan's motor housing or electrical components, and always keep the bowl a safe distance from any outlets or cords. If you have pets in the home, be mindful of where you place your salted ice bowl as well, since consuming large amounts of salt can be harmful to animals, and curious pets are often drawn to bowls of melting ice sitting on the floor. Beyond the fun of a quick DIY project, this trick fits perfectly into the bigger picture of reducing your electricity bill without sacrificing comfort during the hottest months of the year. Central air conditioning is one of the biggest contributors to summer energy costs, and running it constantly, especially in older homes with outdated insulation or leaky ductwork, can quietly drain hundreds of dollars from a household budget over a single season. Using a salted ice and fans set up in bedrooms overnight or in a home office during the day allows many homeowners to raise their thermostat a few degrees without feeling the difference, which adds up to real savings over weeks and months. It is not meant to replace a home's primary cooling system entirely, but as a supplemental tool for smaller spaces or shorter bursts of extreme heat, it offers a low-cost, low-energy way to stay comfortable. It is also worth connecting this back to a broader homeowner mindset, because staying cool efficiently is really just one branch of good home maintenance overall. The same instinct that leads someone to try a clever trick like this is often the same instinct that catches small problems before they become expensive ones, whether that is noticing a furnace filter that needs changing, spotting the early signs of basement moisture, or realizing a home feels colder than it should even with the heat cranked up. Homeowners who pay attention to small practical fixes like the salt and fan trick tend to be the same ones who stay ahead of seasonal maintenance checklists, catch hidden roof damage early, and avoid the kind of costly repairs that come from ignoring small issues for too long. Comfort and cost savings almost always go hand in hand with awareness, and tricks like this are a great entry point into thinking more intentionally about how your home uses energy every single day. If you want to take this concept even further, there are a few additional tips worth mentioning. Placing your fan and ice setup near a window, but not directly in direct sunlight, can help circulate slightly cooler outdoor air in the early morning or late evening hours when temperatures naturally drop. Running the fan on a lower speed setting sometimes produces a more noticeable cooling effect than running it on high, since slower airflow spends more time passing across the cold surface of the ice before dispersing into the room. Freezing your salt and ice mixture directly in a container ahead of time, rather than assembling it fresh each use, can also save a few minutes of prep during especially hot afternoons when you want relief immediately. For those who end up loving this trick and want a slightly more permanent setup, a few homeowners have gotten creative by drilling small holes into the lid of a foam cooler, filling the cooler with salted ice, and positioning a small fan to blow directly into the cooler and out through the holes, creating a more contained, styrofoam-insulated version of the same basic concept. This keeps the ice colder for longer periods, since foam coolers insulate far better than an open bowl, meaning fewer refills and a more consistent stream of cool air over several hours. It is a fun weekend project, and it turns this simple trick into something closer to a genuine homemade air cooler you can rely on throughout the summer season. At the end of the day, the beauty of turning any fan into an ice-cold air cooler using just salt lies in its simplicity. There is no expensive equipment to buy, no complicated installation, and no risk of a huge spike on your next power bill. It is a trick that uses basic chemistry, a little creativity, and items most homeowners already have sitting in their kitchen, transforming an ordinary fan into a genuinely refreshing source of relief on the hottest days of the year. Whether you're trying to cool down a single bedroom, save a little extra on your energy bill, or simply enjoy a clever, old-fashioned home hack that actually works, this is one of those small changes that proves comfort at home does not always require a big budget, just a little know-how and a willingness to try something new